Welcome back to the channel. Shout out to all my subscribers. We're smoking all my dragons, divine, righteous, almighty greats, overachieving, never slacking. And today we have this woman who actually I have respect for because she pretty much exposes all the subconscious programming that she's had her whole life from just looking at other people a certain way that aren't like her and being taught hateful things. So it's titled Born into a Hate Group Survivor Tells All. And her channel is Life Take Two. Original link will be in the description. I'm going to play some of it. And I'm going to leave it, like I said, in the description for you guys to go check out the rest. But we'll just play, get her to mention a couple points, and then we'll touch on those points. Here we go.
Said. So first of all, that viewpoint of born and raised multi-generational, I was the product of a community that this was their ideology since the beginning. And I was the child of multi-generational family. So every one of my aunts and uncles and my cousins and, my mom and my grandparents and everybody, this was their absolute reality too. Okay, so here's what I believed about race. You have to go way back to the past life, which Mormons call the pre-existence. If you just Google Mormon pre-existence, and you can read all about that. I believed that I was literally birthed by one of the heavenly mothers and heavenly father, Elohim God, and that we lived in a life before we gained earth bodies where we could make choices and we had our personalities and our passions. Like the person that I am today, that's who I was in this past life. And all of God's spirit children were being born into this past life until he had amassed, billions and billions of people. And at that point, God, who was white, the heavenly mothers who were white, they called together all of his spirit children in what's called the council in heaven. And in this council in heaven, God told us that he wanted us to become a God like himself. And in order to do so, we'd have to come to earth, gain physical bodies. And if we passed the test, that we could come back to him and be gods and goddesses just like him and his heavenly wives. So God presents this plan for us to become like him. And his two sons volunteered to play a really pivotal role of savior. God wanted us to have free choice, and to do so, he'd have to have a sacrifice in the form of one of his children giving up their lives and also being that exemplar for everybody. So Jesus came forward, and Lucifer, who would later become Satan, and they had opposing views. All of us spirit children chose sides. 2/3 of us went with Jesus, and 1/3 of God's children went with Satan. Well, they lost the war, so they were cast out. They never received bodies. They can never become gods. And they are now these satanic forces that rule over the world, led by Satan. But of those 2/3, there were part of them that were kind of apathetic, kind of fence sitters was a word that one of the Mormon prophets used to describe them. And another phrase that the Mormon prophets used to describe these people who, like, they got to stay in heaven, they got to come down to earth, and they hadn't quite followed Satan, but they weren't the best spirit children of God. The phrase that the Mormon prophets used for them is less valiant. They were less valiant in their past life. And so what happened to those people, according to what my church taught me, was they were cursed to be born to African families. And here's why being born to African families was such a curse. Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, Cain kills Abel. Cain is cursed with black skin. He's then removed from the Garden of Eden, which was in America, in Jackson County, Missouri. Adam on Diamond is the biblical Adamic language word that I was taught as a child. And so Cain was cast down to Africa, given black skin. All of his descendants were those less valiant spirits. So not only were they physically cursed, but they just weren't the best spirits to begin with. Now,
So let's stop right there. That right there explains when why certain people just look at people as less than humans, as they said during slavery, less than humans. I often speak about when I'm out in public, and sometimes, and a lot of times actually, I just catch people looking at me very strangely, and I always think like, what is going through their mind, right? Like it's just weird. And then when you catch people and then they're like this, or they'll just it's just a very weird vibe. This explains why a lot of people be looking like that because It's certain beliefs that they were programmed into thinking that, dark is a curse. And it makes sense why you look at people now, for example, with the person who with the Tyler kid that did that to Charlie Kirk. They're like, oh, forgive him. But it's easier for them to say to someone of darker complexion, oh, we need to bring back the death sentence and things like that, is because they perceive dark as a curse. Using the word black. This is black. This is black. This is copper color, right? A copper color skin, right? But as she said, anything darker, that just sounds like, what that sounds like is psychopaths who needed to justify their actions, right? Who needed to justify their actions on murdering and the things that they did, so they could sound righteous. That's what it sounds like. Like psychopaths who wrote this, who went and manipulated and wrote things and whitewashed everything. They needed to justify it in some type of way by convincing the world that darker skin was a curse. When the whole time, when you look at the neuromelanin, when you look at, even plants have a certain type of melanin. When you look at, it's like, look at everything that's been done to the world. It's been a war on everything natural, from the trees, cutting down all these trees and destroying just natural resources. And it seems like everything that's original to the planet it's been a war waged on that in the name of a white male patriarch, right? For that to rise, the sacrifice needed to be the original people who are darker skinned, people who were in tune with the earth. Like that. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like they needed to come up with something to justify the actions.
If you're listening to this and thinking this is crazy, it absolutely is. And I don't know how very many adults who hear this convert to the Mormon church. I think it's really a tricky thing to sell these days. But again, that childhood indoctrination, I was born and raised into a community that taught this. And I've said in other videos that just as I was learning how to walk and talk and like zip up my own coat in the kindergarten coat closet, I was being taught, you lived in heaven, Heavenly Father, the war in heaven, they're cursed, they're sent down, black.
She's a powerful person. To reprogram herself, it goes to show she's something else in spirit, because that's irregular. That's not regular for someone to have a certain programming from a baby and be able to reverse that, especially older. There's the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This completely debunks that saying, because I think she said she really started to wake up around, truly broke out around like 48 years old. Like, she was always low key questioning and doing her, but she truly kind of broke out of this mentality, I think she said, by around age 48.
People, they come from Africa, they were bad spirits, and then Cain was bad here on earth. So those are not good people, nor are the indigenous people of the United States, because the Book of Mormon, there was a good brother, there were two bad brothers. The bad brothers were cursed with brown skin. That's why the Indians have brown skin, because these are cursed people. And it would have been as difficult for me to unlearn that concept as it would have been to forget how to zip my coat in the kindergarten closet. Every cell in my body had accepted it as truth because I was taught it in scriptures, and scriptures don't lie. That's the truth. That's the most true thing in the world. Our prophets, our charismatic leaders with their big, bright smiles, stood at the pulpits in our local congregations and sometimes speaking the whole world, talking about these truths. My parents, my family, my home reinforced it. The artwork, books that we had, music that was written just for children reinforced this. The whole community at large reinforced this truth. For me to think anything otherwise would have been like learning to walk sideways instead of forward. No, my knees bend. I'm supposed to go forward. I can't walk sideways. Black people are cursed.
At Shriners Children's, we're home to the world's leading pediatric.
And it even makes me think about certain situations. Like, when I was a child, I remember going camping with my friend and his mom. And his mom randomly goes to me. She asks me, do they still burn people in Africa? It's like the thought process of somebody, and the programming for them to even, like, why would you even ask a child something like that? I mean, I could give a million scenarios, that true scenarios, true situations that I've been through, but mostly as a child. As a grown man, people don't play like that because they know they see you now. You're a man. They know you can protect yourself. They know your mind isn't that undeveloped child mind where they can now project all these beliefs onto you because they know you may not know how to respond accurate or the right way. But as a grown man, people are very nice now. Compared to when I was a kid when no one's looking.
And this right here is why I think that it's more dangerous than joining like a neo-Nazi group, because I never had critical thinking to begin with. I didn't come from just a normal life. My whole life was this. There are two other really important ideologies that are kind of foundational to my white supremacy. One of them was the battle of good and evil that was constantly going on. And that battle of good and evil made me look at people who were suffering as people who God was punishing. So let me give you an example of this. I know I've shared in another video that I was born in 1974. So I grew up with the Ethiopian famines. And I remember seeing them on the news and going to my grandma and saying, "Can we send some money?" Like somebody had said, you can send money or something to help with food, put a check in the mail, do this. And my grandma saying, "Oh no, God has cursed them. We can't interfere with that." I viewed everything as a battle of good and evil. If you were being punished, then God was doing that to you, and it wasn't my place to interfere. And I would look around at all of the suffering in the world. So Africa and Mexico, some of the Middle Eastern countries and stuff that were less developed in the 70s and 80s.
Whole time is paradises in Africa, where so many people are living in right now that they don't show that side too. I was explaining that to one of my clients who's in her 70s. I was showing her literally different areas in Africa, and she was like, "No, it's like the first thing I would do is I'll show the picture and I'll ask, what do you think this is?" And I'll be like, "Oh, is that Italy? Is that somewhere in Europe? Is that?" I'll be like, "Oh, it's Africa." What? No way. They have, yeah. The brainwashing in America is insane, but this is what had to happen in order for the male patriarch to rise. I mean, what they did to women is ridiculous, right? Too, like the witch hunts and so much to steal their land and all the stuff that they did. It's of a psychopath, and that is crumbling more and more and more. When you look at the postcards and you see families hanging people and burning people, and you see little children smiling, and does that sound like something that's of God to you, godly, of a high frequency to you? No. How could you even? So my thing is, I've been saying, it's going to be women like her and so many more that are going to be the ones to take the head off all lies. It's going to be them. Like I said, all the witches that were hung, that you called witches, all the women that you demonized and made them feel like second class citizens. They're going to be the ones to swing that sword. Matter of fact, I remember for those that watch Game of Thrones, remember when Arya Starks, when she was the one who took out the White Walker. Yeah, that's gonna be women right there. They're gonna take out the White Walker, right? It's like the Stepford Wives out here, the movie. They want everybody to be a certain way, or a robotic certain way, and that's crumbling. That's not going to last. It's over. The shift is over. That needed to happen for whatever reason, but the shift is here now, right? The shift is here now. So I think I said the shift is over. I meant to say the shift has began. The shift has begun. So, or begun. The thing is, they say the average person has 75,000 thoughts going through their head a day. I swear, I gotta be on like 200,000 because I feel like so much is going through my head at once where I'm just thinking like of the things she said, thinking of while I'm also thinking of experiences that I had in the past, also experiences that I have today. I think about all the times people in my comments that say things to me, or the racial attacks I might get behind the scenes verbally. Like all that's just coming to my head right now. And she put this into perspective as far as why they think how they think and what they believe, and how a lot of people are programmed, in the same way that so many people like her are programmed to think to have that superiority complex, is the same way that so many people who look like me are programmed to have that victim mindset. So it constantly keeps a divide, and it creates such a nasty world. that's just divided. So I'm looking forward to seeing that world crumble and seeing people wake up and really start to actually uplift and just get out of this hell state that we've been living under for so long, where like I said, the patriarch rule. That's what this has been. It's been about ego, war, looking down on others, and it's over for that. It's over. It's time for that to crumble. But it makes sense when you see people, why people have no problem shooting others or hanging them off trees, because you're already looking at them as cursed, and you're what she said, even the cells within her body believe that, right? We have trillions of cells in our body. We tell ourselves something, them cells is listening. So she had to, for her to reprogram all that. Like I said, she's a different type of spirit right there. She came to this planet to do this, and there's millions like her that are coming, that are waking up every day, right? So this time was prophesized. This time was prophesized. The times we're living in, and right now it's we're living in a time where it's like cleaning out the closet. Everything's got to get cleaned out and exposed right now. Everything's got to be dragged to the front, right, in front of everybody. So uh, if you were raised like that, or if you're somebody who thinks like that, uh, under understand this: before these books were written, there was already other spiritual practices that trace back eons way before this. Other spiritual practices, right? And just because you were told that yours is superior and that these other ones were cursed, and that's not true. It's not true at all, right? If I go and I do something bad right now, if somebody comes does something bad to you right now, and to your family, so you're just gonna accept, oh, it's because you're cursed? Come on, man. Come on. So let's be real, right? But history's told by what? The victors. So if someone come do something bad to your family right now and then rewrite history, come on, and program a bunch of people to believe from their perspective. Come on. So let's be real. But there were spiritual practices way before all this, was way, way, way before. How way eons before, right? So, but they want you to think that certain people are uncivilized and cursed, and that's that's the mindset so many people are walking around with. Yeah, so many people. So with that being said, original link in the description. I'll be back with more soon. Much love to you all.